That man back in the black says that women can't have as much rights as men because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from?
I question America. Is this America, the land of the free and the home of the brave?
We have to stop being ashamed of being black. We've got to stop being ashamed of being black.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Words aren't just sounds or letters on a page. They have the power to change history. They've ignited revolutions, bridged centuries, and connected countless souls. They possess the ability to immortalize moments and encapsulate emotions. Speeches can serve as a bridge between the past and the present, the individual and the collective, the oppressed and the liberated. Journey with us back in time to the streets of Pretoria, where freedom was a long walk, yet achieved. The hymn of overcoming discrimination was sung in Atlantic City when a question about black womanhood challenged both gender and racial segregation. Black power rose against white power, and when a man's dream became the dream of millions. Welcome to Black History Diary. Today we delve into monumental speeches by black personalities, each a cornerstone, not just in black history, but in the memory of all humanity. From 1851 to 1994, many famous black people were born with the gift of persuasion and inspiration through words, or as we like to call it, the gift of gab. From standing against slavery to achieving equal citizenship, their powerful rhetoric served a great purpose. These speeches changed the world. Their rhetorical brilliance tore down the walls of oppression, and the legacy remained to inspire generations. Let's explore 5 of the greatest recorded speeches in black history. Number 5 on our list is a speech that broke barriers and shattered stereotypes. Ain't I a Woman by Sojourner Truth. Who was she? Born in slavery as Isabella Baumfree in 1797, she was a women's rights advocate and an abolitionist writer. But she was more. She was a revolutionary voice in a world that tried to silence her. Her booming voice silenced the crowd as she delivered her Ain't I a Woman speech, challenging the societal norms and prejudices of her time. The year was 1851. The Women's Rights Convention was underway in a packed church in Akron, Ohio. The air was thick with tension because the women of that era were expected to be seen and not heard. And there was Sojourner, a black woman, taking the podium.
That man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helps me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me any best place. Ain't I a woman?
With this question, Truth shattered the era's preconceived notions about both race and gender.
I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it, and bear the lash as well.
And ain't I a woman?
And bear the lash as well. In these words, Truth speaks to the resilience and fortitude of black women, the qualities that society failed to recognize. These quotes aren't historical footnotes. They are calls to recognize the intersectionality of gender and race. Truth was asking society to see her, and millions like her, as a whole person with layered identities, deserving of rights and dignity. Nah, this wasn't just a speech. It was a lightning bolt. Ain't I a Woman paved the way for future dialogues on gender and racial equality. It laid a foundation for both the feminist movement and the civil rights movement. It made us ponder complex questions that are just as relevant today. And the woman behind these words, Sojourner Truth, became a symbol of courageous activism. She met with presidents, inspired legislation, and even had her narrative published. She accomplished all this in a society that sought to limit her because of her race and gender. When she asked, "Ain't I a woman?" she wasn't just questioning the crowd in Akron, Ohio. She was questioning future generations, asking us if we see the strength, the courage, and the humanity in every woman, irrespective of color. Her spirit lives on in the struggles and triumphs of women today, asking us to be better, do better, and uplift those whom society often chooses to overlook. Sojourner Truth's incredible "Ain't I a Woman" speech is a masterpiece of intersectionality before the term even existed. It's a battle cry for equality that continues to inspire. Man, let's move on to another speech that shook the world. Don't go anywhere. Fast forward to 1964. Number 4 on our list is a testimony that still resonates in the halls of justice. Is This America? By Fannie Lou Hamer. But who was Fannie Lou? Born in 1917, she was a sharecropper, a voting rights activist, and the leader of the Freedom Democratic Party. The stage, the Democratic National Convention in Atlantic City. The civil rights movement was at its peak, and the fight for voting rights was front and center. Hamer represented the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, challenging Mississippi's all-white delegation. The room falls silent as Fannie Lou Hamer takes the stage. As she speaks, her words become a hammer that smashes the shackles of discrimination, invoking the hymn, "We Shall Overcome," and leaving an indelible mark on American political history.
It was the 31st of August in 1962 that 18 of us traveled 26 miles to the county courthouse in Indianola to try to register to become first-class citizens.
She was against the unfair literacy tests, which were a mandatory requirement for Black citizens to become voters. Very often, those tests were impossible to pass. It showcased the systemic unwillingness of white-dominated society to include people of color in the electoral process.
Is this America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, where we have to sleep with our telephones off of the hook because our lives be threatened daily, because we want to live as decent human beings in America?
Is this America? With this rhetorical question, Hamer threw a spotlight on the hypocrisy of American democracy. We didn't come all this way for no 2 seats when all of us is tired. All of us is tired. These 4 words encapsulated the exhaustion felt by millions. They were tired of oppression, tired of fighting for what should be basic human rights. Her testimony was presented before the Credentials Committee, which was mostly made up of white Democratic members. Some were sympathetic to her cause, while others, not so much. Nonetheless, her words shed some tears in the convention and invoked strong emotions. Hamer's words weren't just for her audience at the convention. They were for the nation, for us. Her message highlights the struggle for a more inclusive America, an America where the principles of democracy apply to all. Let's talk about the impact of her struggle. Hamer's testimony was televised, turning living rooms into classrooms, teaching the realities of racial and voting injustices. Unfortunately, it was interrupted when President Lyndon B. Johnson suddenly decided to hold a press conference. Some say it was a deliberate attempt to suppress her voice. Her speech was instrumental in the political shifts that led to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Thanks to Hamer's influential testimony, this act banned those unfair literacy tests. But her activism didn't stop at the convention. She ran for Congress and started grassroots projects that encouraged other Black women to participate in the electoral process. She contributed highly to the civil rights movement. She stood as a testament to the resilience and courage of Black women in America. Hamer's testimony isn't just a speech, it's a promise, a vow that courage will triumph over oppression. It reminds us that the march for justice, though long and fraught, is a march we must continue. Hamer's legacy continues to inspire us to be a part of the change we want to see, to vote, to protest, and to speak out. Because overcoming is not a moment, it's a movement. Is This America? Is a call to action that transformed a nation and continues to urge us to embody the change that we seek. Stick around as the inspiring journey is far from over. Imagine being swept up in the electrifying atmosphere of 1966, where Kwame Ture, then known as Stokely Carmichael, popularized the term Black Power in a speech that would serve as a rallying cry for a new era in the struggle for racial equality. We're steering our narrative to a third speech where a phrase became synonymous with empowerment and solidarity. Black Power, voiced powerfully by Ture.
We want Black Power.
an activist of the civil rights movement, a leader of the global Pan-African movement, and an intellectual. Ture galvanized a generation seeking not just rights, but power. The scene was set in 1966. The civil rights movement had made significant strides, but the struggle was far from over. Ture, a leader of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, stood in Greenwood, Mississippi, addressing a crowd of passionate supporters.
No man can give anybody his freedom. A man is born free. You may enslave a man after he is born free. And that is in fact what this country does. It enslaves black people after they're born. So that the only act that white people can do is to stop denying black people their freedom. That is, they must stop denying freedom. They never give it to anyone. This country knows what power is. It knows it very well. And it knows what black power is because it's deprived black people of it for 400 years. So it knows what black power is.
Black power, a radical departure from the more conciliatory calls for freedom. These two words ignited conversations about self-determination and political efficacy for black Americans. Ture wasn't an orator. He was on the front lines, having been arrested multiple times during the freedom rides and facing brutality. These experiences crystallized his vision for black power. By 1966, while the civil rights movement had achieved legal victories, there was a growing sentiment that these weren't enough. Economic disparities, police brutality, and systemic racism persisted. Ture was rallying people to take pride in their identity, advocating for a sense of collective purpose. Beyond that, he wanted to incorporate economic self-sufficiency and resistance to cultural assimilation by the black community. The phrase Black Power transcended that moment in Mississippi. It resonated with people seeking empowerment, racial pride, and community control. Ture's articulation echoes even today, as conversations around social justice and community empowerment continue to gain momentum. The Black Power speech was transformative. It led to debates, dialogues, and even dissent, but no one could deny its electric impact. It catalyzed the Black Panther Party, influenced black arts and culture, and became a cornerstone of black studies. As for Ture, his influence didn't stop with that speech. He continued to inspire as a Pan-Africanist, advocating for global black unity. He spent the later part of his life in Africa engaging in revolutionary causes. Black power is not just a catchphrase. It's a commitment to reclaiming narratives and a blueprint for community building. The legacy of Black Power continues to animate modern movements. It serves as a reminder that empowerment is not given, it's claimed. Kwame Ture's electrifying speech on Black Power is a call for unity, a call for empowerment, and a call that continues to reverberate through history. Number 2 on our lineup is a speech that transcended borders and unified a divided nation. Let your mind drift to a jubilant crowd in Pretoria, South Africa. In 1994, the freshly sworn-in president utters the words that took decades in the making. Through his resilience and nonviolent politics, he took the long walk that brought an entire nation to freedom. As he speaks, the air is imbued with a sense of hope and reconciliation that radiates across a fractured nation, and indeed, the world. Mandela was not just a politician, he was a revolutionary, a peace icon, and above all, a beacon of hope and reconciliation. For decades, apartheid had gripped the nation, tearing apart communities and families. From his early days as a young lawyer to his involvement in the ANC, Mandela's path was always aligned against apartheid. But on this day, history was rewritten. Nelson Mandela stood as South Africa's first black president.
We enter into a covenant that we shall build a society in which all South Africans, both black and white, will be able to walk tall without any fear in their hearts, assured of their inalienable right to human dignity. A rainbow nation at peace with itself and the world.
By a rainbow nation at peace with itself, Mandela envisioned a united South Africa where the color of one's skin wouldn't dictate their destiny.
The time for the healing of the wounds has come.
The time for healing has come. These words resonated not just in South Africa, but across the globe. They signaled the dawn of an era of unification. Mandela's words speak to all of us today, echoing the enduring desire for unity amidst diversity, for justice amidst inequity, for peace amidst strife. It wasn't just an inaugural address, it was a world address. It inspired countless movements for freedom and equality worldwide, and put South Africa on the path of growth. Mandela's life epitomized the essence of resilience. After 27 years of imprisonment, much of which he spent in the harsh conditions of Robben Island, he emerged not with vengeance, but with a vision of peace and unity. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993. He navigated South Africa through difficult transitions. Under his leadership, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was established, a daring move to address the atrocities of the past with a spirit of understanding and forgiveness. His long walk to freedom serves as a timeless reminder that freedom isn't just the absence of oppression, it's the presence of justice and human dignity. Mandela's legacy calls us to continue the long walk towards freedom, towards justice, and toward a world where everyone can walk tall. His words are a guideline for justice, a playbook for peace, and a narrative of hope that is still valid today. Stay tuned as we close this journey with a speech that is as iconic as its speaker. Number 1. After hearing it so many times, the celebrations, the birthdays, the holidays, this speech to some has lost its impact, but it's still as relevant today as when the words were first uttered. I Have a Dream by Martin Luther King Jr. Imagine, if you will, standing among a sea of people, 250,000 strong, as the August sun beats down on the Lincoln Memorial. The year is 1963, and Martin Luther King Jr. steps up to deliver his iconic I Have a Dream speech. Feel the chills run down your spine as his voice soars, encapsulating the hope and the courage of millions of African American people. King was more than a civil rights leader. He was a light of hope, a paragon of nonviolent activism, and a master orator. This speech was delivered on August 28, 1963, during the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Imagine the National Mall filled with around 250,000 people. This was the crescendo of the civil rights movement, an outcry for equality and justice.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Who could forget these lines? This is not just an aspiration for Black families. It's a vision for a more equitable society. The March on Washington wasn't just about a dream. It was a culmination of frustrations, grievances, and aspirations of Black Americans who were tired of the racial segregation and discrimination.
Let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California.
In the climatic Let Freedom Ring, King calls upon the mountains and the valleys across America to echo the sounds of liberty. These lines are not only eloquent, they are potent. King was delineating a future where racial harmony replaces racial discord. A dream where civil rights aren't a Black issue or a white issue, but a human issue. Those were more than words. It was a galvanizing force. Laws changed. Attitudes shifted. King's speech was instrumental in the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. His impact didn't stop at America's borders. His message resonated globally, inspiring nonviolent protests for equality and justice worldwide. For his outstanding service, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. Martin Luther King Jr. is eternally etched in our memory as a martyr for justice and equality. Assassinated at 39. His life was short, but his legacy is immortal. He left us not just with beautiful words, but with an ethos we could continue to strive for. King may be gone, but his dream lives on in each of us, challenging us to make it a reality. The monumental I Have a Dream by Martin Luther King Jr. is a masterpiece of oratory, a timeless manifesto for equality, and a beacon for all humanity. So, dream on and act on those dreams. That's what King would have wanted. That's what we owe to ourselves and the generations to come. We've journeyed through a mosaic of voices today. Voices of hope, voices of courage, voices of empowerment. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream, Sojourner Truth's impassioned question, Fannie Lou Hamer's resilience, Mandela's lone walk, and Kwame Ture's call for Black power. Each of these luminous figures etched indelible marks on the pages of history. While their times were different, their message is unified and evergreen. The fight for equality, dignity, and justice is ongoing, and it's not a fight one can wage alone. It's a collective endeavor passed down from one generation to the next. The heroes mentioned today call us to continue their work, to dream without limits, to question the status quo, to overcome hurdles, to walk the hard path of freedom, and to claim our power. They remind us that history isn't just a series of past events. It's alive. It breathes through us. It's a well of inspiration we can always draw from to quench our thirst for justice, to fuel our fight for what is right.
Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.